everybody. This is Geronimo from the Beyond Taboo podcast and co-founder of Choke to Grow. And I'm joined here today by Dr. Elliot, important doctor, CEO, founder, I must say, of Firmtech. Great Cochrane brands. We'll all find out now. In case you guys don't know it, you're really missing something. So, Doctor, how's everything going, Dr. Elliot?
It's great. We've now documented 83,000 erections. We have the world's largest database of dick health, and we're learning things that were not expected by doctors and sexologists about men's sexual health.
Well, that's very interesting. It really evidences that, well, there's still a lot to learn on this field, right? I mean,
Oh, so
probably
much.
a lot has been neglected.
Well, until now, until our smart sex tech wearable, uh, decision making in urology and sexology for men has just been based upon conjecture, not upon
Oh,
data.
well.
So what we've learned is that the doctors have been thinking that men's primary problem is with their pump, the heart, or with the arteries that come out of the heart, they get narrow and they're not getting enough blood into the penis. But that's not the case. So the incidence of erectile dysfunction goes up 10% per decade after age 40. I'm 72, but my age it's 70%, and that's a fucking disaster. So
It is.
so thinking that the doctors, myself included, was that as the incidence of erectile dysfunction goes up, the firmness of sex erections will go down, the number of nocturnal erections will go down, the firmness of
Oh,
nocturnal
well.
erections will go down, and that's not happening. And why do doctors make this mistake? So one of the mistakes that we doctors make, and not uncommonly, is especially the academic doctors who set standards, is that they see the sickest people in their offices. So the sickest people with erectile dysfunction are the 10-12% of men who can't get it up or
All
struggle to
right.
get it up.
Okay, that makes sense.
But that's not most men. But the
Okay, so
doctors
that's the way they set a standard.
exactly. Now those men are really dysfunctional. I hate the word dysfunction because most men actually who think they have ED don't have dysfunction. They got a problem that can be fixed. But these men who
Well,
struggle
it is a wrong term. It is an intense or maybe too hard term,
it's
probably.
shaming. I mean, it's embarrassing to men. Uh, it makes them reluctant to discuss. Guys don't talk about ED with their friends. Women talk about vibrators with their friends. Guys don't talk about ED with their friends. But guys don't talk about ED with their doctors, and the doctors don't ask either. This is the general inhibition about it. If people saw it as a problem rather than as something that's embarrassing, I think that things would change. So for these guys,
Oh,
the 10
definitely.
the 10% of men who struggle to get it up or can't get it up, that's dysfunction. That's a dick that's sick. Those men are highly likely to have major cardiovascular problem or medication related side effect related problem. And our device is the world's first device that men can wear at home and say, what is causing my problem? Am I getting nocturnal erections or not getting nocturnal erections? But the vast majority of men, like 85% or plus, who say they think they have ED, they get erections and then they lose it. And that's multifactorial. So
Okay.
if you get an erection and you lose it, that's that doesn't mean you have pump failure. You're getting enough blood into your heart's pumping blood into your penis. You get enough blood through your arteries into your penis. You get an erection, then you lose it. What's going on? So the thinking of the doctors is uh, take Viagra, take Cialis, get more blood in the penis. Well, those medications, for how much farmers put billions and billions of dollars. They put more blood in, but they don't keep it there. A guy who gets an erection loses it. His problem is keeping the blood there, and it turns out that the ring is an answer. All men, whether they have ED or don't have ED, all men, if you get an erection, you want to last longer, rock harder, have more intense orgasm, put a ring on it. So one of my missions, and I got into this with the data because a man's nocturnal erections are a leading indicator of cardiovascular health. Any man over the age of 45, 50 should strongly consider getting a tech ring, just the way you check your blood pressure, the way you can electrocardiogram, the way you check your liver proteins. Find out your baseline sexual function, sexual health. I call it erectile fitness. And then you can monitor for the rest of your life. And you can ideally identify a problem before it happens. But for the vast majority of men, put a ring on. Every guy tonight can prove to himself that he has venous leak. Even a young man like you can do that. How can you do that? Go to Pornhub or XNXX or wherever you X Hamster, wherever you go when you're masturbating, get rock hard,
Okay.
turn off the stimulation, and your erection will go down in 25, 35 seconds. Then get rock hard and put a ring on. Of course, hours, but no, any cock ring will do. Put a ring on it, and you're gonna stay hard for about 2 minutes. Well, what is that telling you? I have blood. I can stay harder by preventing blood from leaking out of my penis. So, you know, it's one thing that's been interesting with all the tens of thousands of erections that we've looked at. We have world-renowned urologists around the world looking at, thinking, we've been we've been wrong. And why
We've
is
been
that?
missing something, definitely.
Yeah, because they're not recommending cock rings. Because one of the problems with doctors is that while they might be politically liberal, they're conservative in terms of their sexual practices. Uh, uh, Most doctors, straight doctors, have no experience with cock rings, and they associate again with doctors reason from the worst, the general population. So your average doctor's experience with the cock ring, mine too, when I was practicing emergency medicine, was some guy who takes overdoses himself on Viagra, puts a cock ring on, gets drunk or takes drugs, has sex, falls asleep, and 8 hours later he has a dead dick because he's got this ring still on. But that's not the experience. That's doctors projecting from the worst onto the general population. Your average guy who uses a cock ring is a gay guy. 90% of gay men use cock rings regularly, and only 10% of straight men do. The gay guys, they're more open-minded and they're onto something. So what is when straight doctors tell me, "Oh, cock rings are dangerous," well, you're wrong. We've proven ours with a large safety study that ours can be worn for hours safely. And doctors will also say they got the male pride thing. Oh, I don't need that. Well, it's not about need; it's about want. I mean, doesn't every man want to rock harder, last longer, have more intense orgasm, be more likely to satisfy their partner, and have their partner enjoy it more? And any guy who says no to any of those things should probably have a mark on his forehead warning off any lover, male or female, saying, you don't want to be with this person because this person's a jerk." Because every man would want to perform better. And I didn't understand this myself. I mean, 3 years ago, if you told me put a ring on, I would have said, I don't need it. But now
Oh,
it's like, well,
that's an interesting comment. I was actually wondering how did you first think about this missing link that the cock ring actually is? How did the idea born?
well, it's many years ago. I live in Montana, in the United States, and I own horses, and I broke 6 ribs and 6 vertebrae. I did knock that tree over, by the way. That tree really suffered, but it got me interested in what's gone on to rehabilitate sexual function in men who've had spinal cord injuries. I did not have a spinal cord injury. I had a lot of pain, but I didn't have an injury. And eventually led to my having a doctor place an electrode right above my puke bone by the pudendal nerve and cavernous nerve. Every guy's two favorite nerves, every woman's two favorite nerves, they're responsible for arousal and climax. And I felt nothing. So the doctors would have predicted that I would have gotten an erection, and it didn't happen. And I tried to publish that story. I called it Project O, and it didn't get published. But a urologist 3.5 years ago heard about this and said, "Oh, I want to count the number of nocturnal erections that are a leading indicator of man's cardiovascular health." And I said, "Well, that's the backstory. Why limit ourselves to nocturnals? Yeah, the night shift is interesting. The night shift of our dick can tell us what's going on with our cardiovascular health. But men are more interested. I'm more interested in what's going on when having sex. So our rings can be worn overnight or can be worn during sex. So in order to come up with a cock ring that get data overnight, I had to reinvent the cock ring. I had to come up with a cock ring that's not made of a hard silicone ring. That's made out of a soft elastomer. An elastomer allows the blood to go in and only constrains the venous return. And that got me thinking, well, what can we do to improve a man's pleasure? And so even before the data indicated that all men benefit from wearing rings, like keep them harder because they have venous leak, I was thinking, how can we give more pleasure for men? Because women have vibrators, and men have shit. I don't know about you, Geronimo, but I've never cared for these strokers. They're just kind of big awkward things. I'm certain they'll get better in time, but they just don't. They don't this whether belongs to me or to a woman. This has a brain attached to it. All sorts of sensations can be applied
That's
with
true.
imagination, as opposed to a machine that's that's back
Well,
in the day.
things are changing though. I mean,
They're getting better.
technology.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
hear good things about Auto Blow's Vacuum Glide. I don't know. I haven't played with it yet. But so I'm open-minded. But my point being is that women have vibrators. They've been mainstream in my lifetime. Back in the '80s, before you were born, vibrators among women were like kind of embarrassing, shameful. Oh, you shouldn't. You become vibrator dependent, and that's not the case. Today they're normative, and cock rings should be the same for men. Men should not see cock rings as a crutch, a weakness. They should see it as, hey, this is going to improve your performance. I
Or
mean,
even something weird sometimes. I feel like still a lot of men think about cock rings like if it's something weird to use, like.
so let's throw an analogy to the gym. Let's suppose that or exercise. Uh, is wearing a better running shoe, is that a crutch? I mean, it's not embarrassing. It's not embarrassing to put on, or if I'm on a mountain bike and I put wrist and elbow guards on. Is that a crutch?
Oh,
No.
that's true.
So
It's
I
a
don't know.
great
Maybe it's
analogy, actually.
not great. But in every area of our life, we look for things that will improve our performance. And if some other in sex, we're not going to do that. That's male pride, and
Yeah, oh, for sure.
that's dumb. From my perspective, it's dumb. And we we've designed our maximum performance ring to help a guy have more intense orgasm. Who doesn't want that? Who that's it.
One question, Doc, about cock rings. I was wondering while you were mentioning the requirements or what makes a cock ring good. And actually, because there are definitely lots of different cock rings, some just for the shaft, others that also go around your balls, like the whole
Yeah,
package. So,
there it
what are
is.
the difference between grabbing the whole thing, the package, in just the shaft?
Yeah, well, there are several advantages. So I'm just going to talk about the pleasure aspects at this point. I will say that we came up with called the Pinot scrotal design. We came up with it because if we had sensors just around the base of the shaft of the penis, we could get rotational artifact. The data wouldn't be as accurate. But
Okay.
also, the advantage of Pinot scrotal design is one, the balls are a source of pleasure. The balls are secondary erogenous zone. And what do guys like having done with the balls during sex? Caress, lap, poked. So by having a ring that holds more blood in the balls, the testicles, they're more sensitive. They're more sensitive to touch. So there's
And do you actually pump more blood to the penis
yes.
while
Oh yeah,
squeezing the balls?
yeah, yep. I mean
All right.
the ring, our maximum performance ring, increases my girth, my circumference, by 3 to 5 millimeters. Well, no one's gonna walk by and say, "Oh, fucking, you look like a porn star." But that's more blood than my penis can hold. There's no amount of what guys need to realize is beyond rock hard, there's cock ring hard. Nothing, no amount of oral, vaginal, anal, stimulation is going to get you harder than a cock ring. So, but the advantage of how the Pinot scroll design is that by holding a little more blood in the balls, two things happen. One, they're more sensitive, but also they're in a defined location. They're held here. And one of the complaints that women have about balls during sex is, well, they're here, they're there. Where are they? They're up, they're down. Where are they? So, my wife calls this a bra for balls, appropriately so, because they're being held in position. What do women
Well,
do
that's
with their breasts?
actually.
Women with larger breasts during sex, they hold them in place because they're accessible. So again, put a ring on it and enjoy the pleasure benefits.
Well, yeah, for sure. I mean, using that sort of cocksling design certainly gives a lot of advantages, not just, I mean, for pleasure, but during sexual scenarios, you have the whole, slapping and clapping with your balls that certainly
Right.
adds
Sure. Yeah.
a whole different dimension.
Well, one of the advantages of our design, and there are, and look, I've been using, I have played around with cock rings for a while, and the only one I really liked was you mentioned was the oxball sling. I don't know if you're familiar with that one.
Yeah, yeah,
My
yeah.
my my
I
my
love
only
Oxballs.
issue, yeah, I liked it, but my only issue with the oxball sling was after about 20 minutes, it began to feel too tight, and also getting it on and off required a lot of stretching, and if I wanted my partner, my wife, to put it on, she didn't. She just found to be awkward. And for myself, I found that with the oxball sling, had a great orgasm, but as soon as I climaxed, I wanted it off right away. The advantage of our design is it's comfortable after climax, so a man can stay hard, 3-4 minutes. And if I've been hard as long as 6 minutes after climax with it, and that's nice. Not because I need to, at my age, keep on thrusting to satisfy my wife, but because if I have a hard on, I'm still engaged there. The male mindset is come and done, and if I still have an erection, I'm not in that mindset yet.
All right. One question there. There's a lot of men that like using cock rings as pretty much, and this is something I usually say to my friends, well, cock rings are pretty much like our own version of intimate jewelry, probably. Certainly gives you that probably sense of power or sensuality. There's a sort of eroticism, going on with your own self. And some men really like using cock rings throughout the day, but some are, well, a bit too harsh to the skin, So I was wondering what makes a cock ring good for using it like all day. Is this something you as a doctor would recommend? What are the pros, the cons of using a cock ring for
there's cock rings
long-term use?
Yeah, the cock rings are designed for jewelry, and they're not constrictive. There's a Dutch company that sent me some of them, but I think you know what I'm talking about. They're designed for jewelry, and they just they sit there. They're not constrictive, so they're safe to wear all day. We have our cock rings are made out of elastin because it's a safe material for prolonged use, and we've have demonstrated that they can be safely worn for 8 to 10 hours. And we do have some men who wear them all day because they like the way it feels on their package, or also because these tend to be younger guys. They don't know when they're going to have an opportunity to have sex with someone, and they want
you have to be prepared.
Yeah.
Makes sense. But there's, well, like you just said previously, there are mixed opinions still on the urological field about cock rings, and I think specifically there's a lot of doubts, or probably, well, yeah, about using cock rings long term.
Well, that's why that's where our data is so valuable, because we've, again, I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of times our rings have been used, but we have 81,000 documented uses of the tech ring. We have our non-tech version, our maximum performance ring. I don't know. We don't, because we don't have data, but because the device, and by the way, all the data is anonymous, but I know the numbers certainly. So to have 83,000 documented erections, with the vast majority of them being overnight, these are being for 6 to 10 hours, and the only complaints being, I manscaped and my hair got chafed, or the number of complaints is infinitesimal. No one has had to go to the hospital. No one's had to see a doctor. No one's has had to take a medication for a problem. So this data is going to change the thinking of urologists about cock rings, or at least our style of cock ring.
And are there any prospects to linking long-term usage in a daily basis to enlargement?
I mean, will the cock ring produce sustained enlargement?
Yeah, that's my question. Probably there isn't much we know about it because of the same reason, Sure.
I might get a call. I'm gonna take that. Sorry. Just, I apologize.
No worries.
My daughter's getting married soon, and she just called me. Who knows what's on her mind? Probably something about the wedding dress, but I apologize.
No worries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So your question is whether cock rings can produce just increased blood flow. So
maybe if the data you have, if you have found out like any potential there.
Well, I'm intrigued by that, because our tech ring is worn overnight, and it is mildly constrictive, not dangerously constrictive, but mildly constrictive. So we think that men are men's nocturnal erections are lasting longer using our device, and that's probably healthy because you want them to last longer. Because especially as you get older, you want more blood flow into the penis to maintain the health of the organ. So uh, that will require a comparative study with either the radio scan or the Atom device. Those devices that can just be used at night, and they're passive. They don't produce increased blood flow. So that research will be done. I don't know when, but it will be done, and we'll have an answer as to whether using our our ring can actually produce sustained blood flow. And I suspect that neither one of those companies is going to want to do a head-to-head study because they're not going to be. Ours is the only one that can produce more blood flow at night.
Well, I'm sure there will be something there, to probably there will be something to talk about. I mean, if there's so much erections you're measuring, and I'm sure things will keep improving, like in terms of
Yeah.
design
Yes.
and I mean, the time you can use a cock ring, probably, I don't know if it's necessarily the plan, but I don't know, probably in a couple of years we will all be using cock
We should
rings
all
all
be
the
using
day,
them. Just the way women almost all women use vibrators as well too. I can perform without a ring, but why? It doesn't interest me anymore because I know I'm gonna have more intense orgasm if I use a ring. So
Well, which brings to the whole debate of what's natural, what's artificial, our dependency towards technology. But actually, we are technological beings, and we evolve as our technology evolves. So,
well,
yeah,
but
pretty much.
yeah, I'm most when people raise that questions, it's like, well, do you cook your food or are you eating it raw? Do you are you wearing shoes right now or you barefoot? Are you gonna
Well, that's a quick way to end the
yeah.
conversation.
One
But
thing is,
makes sense.
but there are men who say that gee, I don't want to, and there's quite a few of them in the biohack community. I don't want to climax because I'm going to lose some sort of vital energy or whatever. Or that if I don't climax for a month, I'll boost my testosterone level. There's no proof of that, any of that stuff. Um, and what's amusing is that I don't hear women saying that. Was this just something that or just applies to men? I've never heard a female biohacker say, "I'm not going to have an orgasm for a month." I mean, it's so there are a lot of there are a lot of peculiar things in this area of men's sexual health. And I'd like to say that where there are hopes, unfortunately, there are dopes. I mean, any man with ED and a lot of men who don't have ED but want to perform better, they would swallow broken glass in order, So now, granted, most of the things that people recommend on the alternative, and I'll focus on the doctors first. We harm people quite often. For example, when it comes to sexual health, we put people on antihypertensives and antidepressants that are going to have a negative impact upon their sexual health without even telling them about it. And that's fucked up. That's wrong. We should be telling them, and we should be helping them to manage their dosages and take medications that are going to diminish the impact upon their sexual health. On the alternative medicine side, um, there are a lot of claims that are made. We have found very, very few claims to be objective. But those things tend to be harmful. I mean, guys are taking a lot of supplements, natural supplements, to try to boost their sexual performance. But do they really work? Uh, we haven't we haven't found any that work alone. There was one study of three in combination of citrulline, arginine, and maca root that shows some increased blood flow at night. But aside from that combination therapy, nothing alone in our with our device has been shown to increase nocturnal blood flow. Nitric oxide, L-arginine, L-citrulline, none of these things alone. So it's interesting because the device can allow people to figure out what works for them. Because it could be that, hey, we studied 28 men. I'll make it up. Let's say 28 men with nitric oxide tablets, and none of them benefited, but they could benefit for you. I don't
No,
know.
for sure.
You wouldn't know unless you had data.
Well, that's interesting. Well, Doc, I was also wondering, because, well, there's these. You can confirm if it is a myth or a belief. I mean, certainly, well, as we age, we certainly have less sex, and having less sex in a way impact. Well, you may say either otherwise, you
Yeah, no.
know.
By the way, I think you should have sex every day, and if you're not having sex every day, you need to get because it's use it or lose it. You can't go to the
Yeah,
gym and
that was my question
yeah,
about you use it or you lose it. Pretty much
right.
about that thought.
So I think it's really important for men to be overall in good health. I don't want anyone leaving this thinking I don't have to worry about my heart. I'll smoke. I can drink. I can continue to eat processed foods. No, you want to do things that help you maintain your blood flow. But um, will how big an impact will it have, and will that impact even compare to just the benefit from a cock ring? I think the cock ring is like an immediate solution. So arousal and climax in men is a smooth muscle function. You can't go to the gym and work out your smooth muscles. You got to have sex to work out your smooth muscles. That's where the use to lose it comes from. So there's a lot of talk about pelvic floor exercises. Well, yes, if you're a man who's had prostate surgery, if you have bladder issues, if you've had surgery, if you're obese, if you don't exercise, you strengthening your PCG, your pelvic floor muscles will be valuable, but does it put more blood in the penis? I don't know. It might make your orgasmic contractions a little bit stronger, because that's one of the aspects of a climax. But will it put more blood in the penis? I doubt it. And there's no evidence for that. Think about that. This is a common myth. Maybe it's true, but no one's proven it. Common myth is that if you do pelvic floor exercises, you'll improve your sexual performance. I think do pelvic floor exercises, you'll overall be more fit, etc., and have more stamina in bed. But as to whether that's going to actually increase blood flow in your penis, that's a separate issue, and I'm skeptical about that. But
All right.
let's focus on the three major male sexual problems. One is fading erections due to venous leak. That can be addressed with a ring, and by also paying attention to your medication and other things. But that can be addressed with a ring. The other two problems are big, and no one's fucking paying any attention to them. What are those two problems? One is the male refractory period. As we get older, the time between climaxes deteriorates. When you're 15 years old and you can have 7 or 8 orgasms a day, when you're maybe around 25, you're good for 3 or 4. By the time you're my age, most men are struggling to have 1 a day. Maybe 2 or 3 a week is what they can do. Well, why is that? And no one knows. No one's looked at it. I mean, women like to complain about how they get no attention paid to their issues. Well, this affects every man, and there is zero research other than a mouse study. There's zero research on the deterioration of the male refractory period. And I'm looking for someone to use our technology to look into that, because that would be, truly be a game changer for
sure.
men.
For sure. I mean, pretty much, I think Firmtech could be like a huge replacement for Viagra. I mean,
Yes. Yeah.
how do you see? And maybe this is a good question to wrap this conversation. Do you see Firmtech in the near future, or probably future in general, replacing how doctors approach these sexual issues?
I'm confident that in 2 to 3 years, the American Urology Association and the National Society for Sexual Medicine will recognize that cock rings should be first-line, non-pharmacological approach, not just for erectile dysfunction, but for telling men, hey, you want to rock, you want to perform better, put a ring on.
You want to rock?
Just put a ring on. Just the way gynecologists now will recommend vibrators, which they wouldn't have done 25 years ago.
All right, so let's hope things flow into that direction. I mean, I believe it could certainly be a possibility. So, yeah.
Well, thanks for the opportunity to talk about it.
Oh, no, I mean, thanks you, Doc, for joining us. It was a great conversation, great product, and for everybody listening to this episode, you'll find soon Firmtech goods in different rings at our store. So you guys will be able to draw your own conclusions and start measuring those erections, getting some insights about your health. So great invention, great chat. Thanks, Dr. Elliot, for being here today. It was a pleasure.
Thanks so much, Ronro.